You are about to become a witness.
Hold up, give me all your money right now.
Crimes caught on tape. From teenage vandalism to thieves who stop at nothing to get the goods, criminals are getting caught in the act on video. Sometimes the tape forces authorities to pay attention.
I'm gonna get this footage, and then hopefully something will come of it.
Sometimes it reveals how criminals work.
They can be in and out of a store in a matter of minutes and have, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in cash.
We'll show you how videotape helps fight crime, catch criminals, and get them convicted.
Take all your money, put it in your bag, put it in the bag.
Captured on camera. Crimes caught on tape. With video cameras in police cruisers, news helicopters, and in the hands of at least one person in every crowd, there's a greater chance than ever that if a crime is committed, somehow it will be caught on tape. It's changing the way police hunt criminals and how the legal system prosecutes them. And it's turning average citizens into crime stoppers. There are even times when this video explosion results in everything from the crime to the chase to the violent conclusion, all play out for the world to see.
All officers, 45, you pay close to the credit union on a stick-up. Hello, ma'am, how many parties held you up? One party, how long have you been gone? 35 seconds.
February 9th, 1988, 11:22 a.m. 9 employees are working at this North Denver credit union when a man walks up to an 18-year-old teller and pulls a gun.
He asked me if he could cash a check, and I said yes. He pulled back his jacket, and he said, give me all your cash. And I looked at him like, are you serious? But I didn't say anything. I said, okay.
The teller hands over close to $3,000. The robbery is over in less than a minute.
It seemed everything was in slow motion. It seemed like it took forever.
As terrified as she is, the teller runs to the window and manages to get a description of the suspect's car. She immediately calls 911.
And which way did he leave there? Okay, it's one white male in his 20s, 5'11", has been gone a couple minutes now. Left eastbound on 46th.
Based on the teller's information, it only takes the police 4 minutes to spot the suspect on Interstate 70. A high-speed pursuit begins and soon moves onto the local streets of North Denver. Nearby, a KCNC TV News helicopter is in the air shooting a story about highway construction. The man behind the camera is Jim Stair, and the highly decorated Vietnam veteran behind the controls is Mike Silva.
Got the pictures, we're flying back. Seconds later, I get the call. Copter 4, have a chase in northwest Denver, about 50th and Sheridan. Can you go over there and take a look?
Silva locates the suspect's car and starts taping. The chase has been underway for 7 or 8 minutes, and the suspect is already making it clear he does not want to be caught.
In a couple of points in the chase, the patrol cars would come up and be heading the opposite direction, trying to block him in, and the suspect would act like he was willing to ram them to get away.
There's a reason for the suspect's desperation. Police later identify him as prison escapee Philip LaForce Hutchinson. At the age of 23, he is already a career criminal with convictions for kidnapping a child and assault and robbery. While serving a life sentence in Texas, he hijacked a truck while on work detail and escaped.
You could tell the driver was very desperate in the actions, the way he was driving, going through intersections with signal lights against red lights.
About 10 minutes into the chase, a police detective makes a bold move to stop Hutchinson. What happens next shocks everyone involved.
I watched the Bronco going northbound on Tennyson, about the 4400 block. And I see an unmarked white police car pull diagonally in the street and stop.
Detective Robert Wallace parks his unmarked car so that it blocks the road. But at the exact moment Wallace gets out of his car, the Bronco hurtles over this hill at more than 80 miles an hour.
When the suspect came over the hill, it caught him by surprise. I don't think that he realized the rate of closure, the speed. I don't think he knew he was that close. And he hesitated in surprise or shock just for a second. That was enough for the suspect to drive right through that police officer, send his body hurtling about 130-some feet, and killing him instantly.
We need an ambulance at 48th Avenue to try to gun hit. Okay, we got an officer down here. The pedestrian, 48th and 10th, quick. Okay, ambulance is responding.
As Hutchinson speeds away down the hill, the pursuing officers are stopped by the body of the detective they find lying in the street.
At this point, the only people that really know where the suspect is the Channel 4 helicopter, the pilot and the cameraman.
From the moment pilot Mike Silva sees Hutchinson hit Detective Wallace, he knows that he is no longer just an observer. And now, with no one else tracking the suspect, the outcome of this chase is entirely in his hands.
We were going to stay over the top of that car. We were going to follow him. We were not going to let him out of our sight.
Less than a mile past the site of the crash, the suspect accelerates down a hill toward an intersection. Suddenly, the chase takes another unexpected turn.
I knew he was going to hit the tree, so boom, he crashes right into that tree. We circled. I called back to the station and advised him that he had crashed this vehicle. He was getting out of the vehicle and on foot.
Silva knows he must make contact with the police. He can hear the police over his scanner, but he can only communicate with the TV station. He asks someone there to call 911, which then contacts the police dispatcher. It's a slow process, but it works.
And the suspect starts running through the neighborhood here. So he's carrying the briefcase with the money from the robbery.
As Hutchinson becomes increasingly agitated, anyone in his path is in grave danger. After just a couple of minutes of running through the backyards with only the helicopter keeping him in sight, the suspect crosses into Adams County to the north of Denver.
This is an apartment building. As he runs into the parking lot, he sees a vehicle leaving. And he tries to commandeer that vehicle, and then there's a lady putting her infant in this little blue car here.
Hutchinson targets a car driven by Mary Barbary. Her 14-month-old son, Devin, is strapped into a child seat next to her.
Well, when he first came up and opened my door, the thing I was thinking, he's going to be in my car. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? Is he going to kill me?
What happens next is a moment of sheer terror. Hutchinson points his gun and shoots.
Channel 4 helicopters overhead. Party has fired at a civilian vehicle here.
Thought he shot my baby for some reason because the door's open. I hear a gunshot, and I thought for sure he had shot him. I thought I would never see them next to corners. I thought I was dead.
The bullet Hutchinson fires from his chrome .357 Luger passes through Mary's rear windshield and just misses her baby. Now, in search of another car, he runs through a gully into a trailer park a block away.
I bring the helicopter around to the back. You can see him looking up at us. And he's very upset. You can see that on his face. And he's fatigued. I don't think he's really sure what he's going to do about us, but he's thinking about it.
It is 20 minutes since the credit union robbery. The suspect, becoming increasingly desperate, points his gun at the news helicopter. Cameraman Jim Stair takes cover as he and pilot Mike Silva are looking death in the face.
He was incredibly upset with it. I took it personal. I did, and I'm glad I did, because it was personal. After he ran over that police officer.
This time, the gunman does not shoot, but clearly Silva and Stair are now in great danger. They are the only thing standing between this armed killer and his escape. When we return, a gripping face-off comes to an explosive conclusion.
At that point, he levels the gun. The gun's actually touching the glass. And I figure he's going to shoot me.
In Denver, a prison escapee, Philip Hutchinson, robs a credit union and speeds off. A police pursuit comes to a stunned halt when Hutchinson rams a detective and kills him. Now only a TV news helicopter is left to track him. The crew is in close communication with police as Hutchinson makes his next desperate move. He tries to hijack a truck in this trailer park.
He walks up to this elderly gentleman and his granddaughter, and he points the gun at him, and he tells the old man to get in the truck and drive away from the area.
The granddaughter manages to get away, but 73-year-old John Lorienti is forced into his truck.
He just told me that I was a dead man if I didn't hurry and start that car. He said, that helicopter's after me, and you better get me out of here quick. I kept playing with the key. I got started. I was talking like that.
As Lorienti slowly drives away, the gunman is hiding below the dashboard of the truck, pointing his gun up at the driver. As patrol cars searching the area approach on the narrow street leading out of the trailer park, all they see is a man driving along at about 10 miles an hour.
And it appears that the suspect is gonna get away because the police don't know he's in that green pickup truck.
The only person who spots Hutchinson is pilot Mike Silva, hovering overhead.
I bring the power in the helicopter to start climbing up, and the police cars drive past him. And Jim and I start screaming, "What?"
Silva repeatedly yells into his radio, trying to let police know the suspect's location. But because the message has to be relayed by someone back at the TV station, it's taking a minute or two for word to get to the police cars.
With one hand, I'm waving out the window, trying to get the police officers turned around. I can hear them now on the police radio.
Go ahead with the emergency. Green pickup, take a hostage. A green pickup, he's got him in a green pickup. A green pickup, a hostage.
Silva now makes a crucial decision to make a daring maneuver.
Well, all these police officers are in this real narrow street with the speed bumps, and they're trying to get turned around. I look over to my left. Here's this very busy lunchtime traffic on Sheridan Boulevard, and they're coming closer to that. I made a decision that what we'll do is go underneath the wires, come up in front of them at a hover, try to keep them slowed down, keep them contained.
Silva carefully maneuvers his helicopter, avoiding these high-tension lines. He drops to a 3-foot hover and then swings around in front of the hijacked truck.
As I do that, I can see the suspect now getting up from the floor and trying to situate himself to sit on the passenger seat. And I see the driver, the hostage, staring at me. We're looking eye to eye, staring at each other.
And he told me, ram it. Ram it. And that blade was going around and everything, and I said, oh my God, we're going to get cut in pieces or something's going to happen to us.
At that point, he levels the gun. The gun's actually touching the glass. And I figure he's going to shoot me. I see this white streak, and it's a police car. And he impales him. He hits the pickup truck broadside.
Officer Roger Prince rams his car into the front right wheel of the pickup, immobilizing it as other officers surround the truck. Jim Stair struggles to get his camera out of the helicopter.
And all at the same time, you hear police officers with the expletives, freeze, police, drop the gun, don't move, all these kind of things. And for just a moment there, I thought this was over. And then much to our shock, he reaches over and grabs the hostage around the neck and yanks him over to him and shoves the pistol into his cheek. And we were kind of stunned.
A dozen officers scream at Hutchinson to drop his gun. Less than a minute goes by, and Jim Stair points his camera just in time to capture the deadly conclusion of the standoff.
The suspect would turn and try to look around. He would do this, lumber like this, and see what happens with his body. The gun, the pistol came away from hostage's head twice. And the third time, and that police officer shot him
13 shots are fired in just 14 seconds, and Philip Hutchinson's life of crime comes to a sudden and violent end. Though it has been just 22 minutes since the first call to police, it is a day no one involved will forget. A hostage has been saved, an officer has given his life, a violent suspect has been brought down. An investigation headed by Captain Fred Stoll determines that the use of deadly force was justified and necessary.
And the police officers involved in that shooting gave that suspect every opportunity to surrender, to give up, not move, freeze, whatever. This was an individual that wasn't going to be taken alive.
Since pilot Mike Silva's maneuvers to block the hijacked truck could have threatened the safety of both the helicopter crew and people on the ground, the FAA also investigates the incident. But given the circumstances, the FAA clears all of Silva's extraordinary aerial maneuvers.
And if it wasn't for Mike Silva, he might have gotten away on this day. And it's certainly conceivable that somebody else could have been killed as a result. In my book, Mike Silva's a hero.
I have no regrets whatsoever about any of this. But afterwards, you know, when you start realizing what happened, it's tough. It's still tough today.
Still ahead, a rampaging mob attacks dozens of women in New York's Central Park. But few might have been arrested if it hadn't been caught on tape. It is a hot Sunday in June. 2 million people are watching the annual Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City. When the parade ends, some of the crowd stays on in Central Park. Once a place to be feared, it is now considered one of the safest urban parks in America. But on this Sunday, the crimes caught on tape will shock the nation. This video is shot by a bystander, David Rivera, who does not want to be seen on television for fear of retaliation.
As I'm walking towards the park, I see a group of like maybe 30, 40 guys, and they're spraying water on women that are walking by.
When he comes across this unruly crowd, Rivera follows them and shoots as dozens of attackers, moving as a pack, begin assaulting women.
And then it escalated to the point where they were trying to like fondle them, hitting them with towels on their buttocks. And then it got to the point where they just grabbed them.
Not only are the women fondled, but some have their clothes torn off. Peyton Bryant, a 29-year-old marketing director, is rollerblading through Central Park when she is attacked.
Passing through a crowd, I would not normally expect to be dragged down on my back and attacked, certainly not sexually assaulted.
As the mob descends on her, someone grabs Peyton from behind and pulls her to the ground.
I was kicking, scratching, biting, anything that I could think of. My sole goal was to get back on my feet.
Like dozens of other women, she is completely overwhelmed by the ferocity of the attack and the unwillingness of anyone to step in and help her.
Couldn't see this guy above me. And people standing up on objects and fences, chanting and cheering, go, 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 go.
It grew every attack. The mob would grow and grow and grow.
Peyton Bryant is one of 53 women who eventually come forward to file complaints about being molested by the mob. How could this happen? How could so many people participate in something that is blatantly wrong?
There's something very primal about this. Adrenaline is flowing, testosterone is flowing, and judgment is suspended.
At that point, when the mob was 80 strong, they felt we can do anything we want to these females, and no one will stop us. That wolf pack mob mentality, just took in, and they didn't care if it was broad daylight Central Park.
I have no shirt on!
And what about the even larger crowd of onlookers? Why didn't any of them do something?
There are two mobs here. One is the mob harming the woman, and the other is the collection of bystanders who influence each other as well.
Dr. John Darling is a social psychologist at Princeton, who's an expert on bystander apathy. He speculates that the bystanders in Central Park either didn't take the attacks seriously or were too intimidated by the mob to act.
This is an emergency. But why should I be the one to help? There's so many other people who could. I'm here with my children. Or perhaps there's a policeman around. Anything like that causes me to feel less responsible.
Even David Rivera, who was videotaping right in the middle of the violence, didn't intervene.
I was too shocked. I mean, I'll tell you the honest truth. I just thought to myself, I'm going to get this footage, and then I'm going to do something with it, and then hopefully something will come of it.
What's worse, according to witnesses, not even the police stepped in. After the mob moves on and Peyton Bryant escapes, she finds a police officer just a block away. She says he is simply not interested in her story.
I then went another block down and contacted another set of police officers on foot who asked me if I wanted to fill out a report. They did not treat it as a crime that was in progress.
I could look up amongst the crowd and look for a policeman, and I couldn't see them.
It isn't until this and other home video of the attacks is shown on television the next day that former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani orders an investigation.
The part that's troubling to me are the reports of the police that were approached about this, who actually didn't see the event, but women came up to them and said, we've been attacked or problems are occurring, that they didn't respond the way they should. If that's true, that's very, very troubling.
The investigation leads to disciplinary proceedings against 5 officers and 3 911 operators for failing to do their jobs. As a result of the melee, all future parades in New York City will be monitored by police helicopters, rooftop observation teams, and surveillance cameras.
It could be my sister, it could be my girlfriend. This is terrible. This can't happen again. It shouldn't happen again.
Ultimately, 18 men either pled guilty or were convicted in the attacks. But no one might have been caught if David Rivera and other bystanders hadn't been in Central Park that Sunday shooting with their video cameras. Still ahead, a Texas town is stunned when a convenience store robbery is caught on tape.
Hold up, give me all your money right now.
Will 4 young women pay for their crimes?
No, I want 50.
More and more video cameras are helping police catch criminals in the act or identify them later for prosecution. But sometimes, even though crimes are caught on tape, we still don't know why they happen. And even with concrete evidence, juries are left to make tough decisions. May 30th, 1999, a convenience store security camera captures an armed robbery on tape.
Hold up, give me all your money right now.
It is the first in a string of crimes that will shock the Houston suburb of Kingwood, Texas.
No, open the door right now.
The gun-wielding criminal is a teenage girl, and her accomplices are her friends. Among them is 17-year-old Katie Dunn. On August 5th, Katie is arrested on a trip to the pharmacy with her sister, Kelly.
They handcuffed her in the front and let her sit in the car, and I hugged her, and she hugged me back, and she was crying, and she told me that she didn't want to talk about it.
All your money, put it in the bag, put it in the bag.
But even with this dramatic video evidence, will a jury convict them? Will they find that 4 teen robbers were responsible for what they did?
Take all your money, put it in the bag, put it in the bag.
The crime spree will also force Katie Dunn's family to ask, why did she go wrong? Katie did have a difficult upbringing. Her parents divorced, and the family had to go on welfare while her mother, Ginger, completed her nursing degree. Ginger believes the child who suffered the most was Katie.
Some days she'd go in her room and she wouldn't, she'd sleep all day and she wasn't really talking to me, and I'm trying to talk to her, and she's just going through a phase.
That phase seems to pass. By Katie's junior year at Kingwood High School, her grades improved and she is accepted into the Kingwood Phillies, the school's prestigious drill and dance team.
I think it gave her a sense of self-esteem. I made it. I'm good enough to be on this team.
But when the school year ends, Ginger once again feels that Katie is having problems.
You know, I couldn't put my finger on it. Katie had these new friends that I wasn't sure about, you know.
The real trouble begins one Sunday night while Katie is hanging out with those friends. One, Lisa Warzika, begins complaining that she doesn't have enough money. What starts out as a joking conversation among the girls somehow ends in a plan to rob a store. The four girls collect ski masks, gloves, hooded sweatshirts, sunglasses, and a gun and head to the Stop and Drive on Loop 494.
Hold up, give me all your money right now.
The clerk is held up at gunpoint, a crime that Katie later describes in a videotaped confession to police.
Lisa was the one over the guy. She told him to give him all her money. She said a few cuss words, I believe. I was the one at the door telling them to hurry up. 30 seconds. That was me.
30 seconds.
Over the summer, the gang commits 5 robberies. Their take is as much as $800 from one store and as little as $50 from another. They call themselves the Queens of Armed Robbery. They give out stolen cigarettes and brag about the body piercings they get. They use their stolen money to buy clothes, snacks, and most troubling, drugs.
They were tired of their ordinary teenage lives. They wanted something more. They wanted the money. They wanted the power.
Both Katie and her friend Lisa Warzika spend 6 months in jail before going to trial.
State's exhibit number 28.
Time and time again, the prosecution turns to the videotape of that store robbery.
Come on, hurry it up!
The girls have no previous records and no shots were fired in any of the crimes. But prosecutors ask the jury to forget that these are teenage girls and think of the suffering inflicted on the victims. They drive home the fact that this is armed robbery, that people's lives were at risk.
You think you might get shot or killed?
Yes.
Did you think about your wife and 2-year-old little baby?
Yes.
No, I want 50.
So you decided to grab a gun and go out and stick it in somebody's face and commit some robberies. Isn't that right, Miss Warzika?
Yes, sir.
During a grueling cross-examination, the girls appear more like frightened teenagers than violent criminals. But the videotape tells another side of the story.
No, open the drawer right now!
The Dunn family hears every detail and struggles to come to terms with the terrible truth about Katie.
I can only say Katie's my greatest joy and my greatest sorrow.
In court, the girls say that drugs led them to commit the crimes. Katie testifies she started doing drugs at age 14. By the time of the robbery, she says she was using more than 1 gram of cocaine every day.
Drugs were the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life, and alcohol. They ruined my life. Everything I've ever worked for or wanted in my life is gone because of it.
This is to be an agonizing case for the jury. Will they see the girls as misguided children or as the hardened criminals they see on the videotape?
No, I want 50.
For a day and a half, the jurors agonize over their decision. The verdict they finally agree on devastates the girls and their families.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated robberies and assess her punishment.
Katie and Lisa are both sentenced to 7 years in prison. Katie nearly collapses when the verdict is read, but Judge Mark Ellis shows no sympathy and says he would have given the girls 12 years or more.
Despite all the advantages that you had in your homes, in your school, in your neighborhood, you made a choice, and that choice was to be thugs. Spare me your tears. You have sown the wind, and you have now reaped the whirlwind.
The ringleader of the group is sentenced to 7.5 years. A fourth girl who played a lesser role in the crimes pleads guilty and avoids going to jail. Katie and Lisa were denied parole in February of 2003. For the Dunn family, life will never be the same.
I had people say that to me. My child would never. I said, don't ever say never. It could be anybody. Even if you love them, even if you're home every day, could be anybody's kid.
Still ahead, diversion crimes caught on tape. How sophisticated gangs rob stores of thousands of dollars and the employees don't even know it.
And I opened up the safe and the money bag wasn't there.
At that point, I heard the door open. I looked up and in walked my boss, who stopped in every morning, and my heart sank.
Most store robberies are not very sophisticated. Thieves use a stolen car to smash a window late at night and grab what they can. Or they simply point a gun in the face of a cashier and run off with the money. But these thieves, highlighted with red arrows, are very different. They operate in broad daylight right under the nose of unsuspecting employees, and no one would have a clue how they do it if they weren't caught on tape. When it happens at this Toledo, Ohio convenience store, manager Marla Fairchild is completely taken by surprise.
And I opened up the safe, and the money bag wasn't there. At that point, I heard the door open. I looked up, and in walked my boss, who stopped in every morning, and my heart sank.
It's taken a gang of thieves less than 3 minutes to steal $4,000 from the safe. Not only is Marla shocked, she's afraid the store owner will blame her.
I thought he was just going to tell me, you're fired. I mean, if this is how you're going to run this store, you're fired.
Marla is a victim of what police call a diversion crime.
Sometimes they can be in and out of a store in a matter of minutes and have, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in cash.
In Marla Fairchild's case, her job was saved because of what the surveillance tapes revealed.
As we were watching the videotape, it kind of made me sick to my stomach.
It was a classic diversion crime that generally takes place in 4 stages. First is the diversion.
The whole objective is to distract the employees in the store so that 1 or 2 people can make their way to like an office area or where the money is kept.
Watch as the gang casually gathers in Marla's store. They look like ordinary people.
They really didn't stand out too much to me. I just thought they were, regular customers coming in to purchase something.
You have 3 suspects, all up at the front of the counter.
The thieves almost always distract every employee in the store by asking questions.
She was asking me if we had no salt chips. Can you come over and help me, see if you do have any?
The chips, of course, are on the other side of the store from the safe. Now the gang has the employees just where they want them, with nobody at the service counter for a couple of minutes.
This is like the furthest away you can be from the register, is right here.
Once the store employees have been diverted, the second stage of the crime takes place, the theft. In Marla's store, the man on the left is blocking her view of the cash register, while one of the women on the right slips behind the counter. She goes straight for the safe. Police say she succeeds in stealing $4,000. But how does she get into the safe?
It was shut, but it wasn't locked.
A lot of businesses during the daytime keep their safes on what's called day lock, and where the safe is not fully locked or it may be even partially open so that they can get in and out of it to make change.
Now, while the thief is working, the third step of the robbery is happening at the same time, the blockade.
She just kept distracting me, picking up chips or, anything to keep me from looking back there.
If Marla becomes suspicious and heads back to the counter, another accomplice is positioned here to stop her. In other diversion crimes, the gangs are even bolder. In the case of this Texas pawn shop, 2 women are in the office to the right. Their accomplices barricade the approaching owner by raising their skirts in his face, not only blocking his way, but also his view. Watch as the women going for the money leave, and then the owner rushes right past them. That's the last step, the getaway. Back in Toledo, while Marla, the manager, is still being blocked, the thief with the money leaves first. When Marla returns, the money is long gone. But diversion crimes don't always go smoothly. In this case, as the thief sneaks behind the counter, the owner guesses something's up. The accomplices start yelling to distract him. When the owner and his son head for the counter, one woman grabs him, causing such a ruckus that the thief slips out with the money right behind the owner's back. Thinking he has foiled the crime, the owner watches them leave. He'll discover later he's still been had.
They'll scuffle with people to try to get out the door. They'll do anything to get away.
And even if they do get caught, diversion gangs often get a chance to make restitution. Since it's almost always a non-violent crime, they usually get very little or no jail time. That's why the case of the Toledo convenience store is unusual. 7 suspects have been indicted. 1 fled the country, but the other 6 were sentenced to 11 months in prison. As for the store manager, Marla Fairchild, her job is safe, but she's still amazed at how easily she was duped.
They're good. They are. They're smooth, they're good, and you don't even know what's going on.
Next, victims fight back. Criminals videotape their own crimes, and a mother must decide whether to turn in her own son when a convenience store robbery is caught on tape.
The phone started ringing, relatives calling, friends. We see Lewis on TV. He's robbing a Stop and Go. And I asked if they were sure. And they said yes. And I said, well, how do you know that it's Lewis? And they said, well, we see his face and we could tell by his voice.
Whether they are caught on tape by news cameras, security cameras,
Hold up, give me all your money right now.
or home video, the explosion in videotape has changed the way we identify, catch, and convict criminals. Wherever crimes are committed, there is a greater chance than ever that somewhere it's being recorded for the world to see. In this San Diego store, the owner forces the robber's gun aside, pulls his own gun, and starts shooting. No one is hit in the shootout, and the robbers get away, but the surveillance video makes the news that night. The next day, the robbers are recognized when they return to the area looking for a gun they had thrown away. They are arrested and found guilty of attempted murder and attempted robbery. Both are sentenced to more than 6 years in prison. At times, video doesn't catch criminals unaware because it's the criminals themselves who are doing the taping. In Kingwood, Texas, a middle-class suburb of Houston, a gang of teenagers goes on a rampage of vandalism. They set fires, blow up a mailbox, even throw a Molotov cocktail on a residential street. They videotape each destructive act, but that video proves to be their undoing. When they set a booby trap on a bicycle trail, this Good Samaritan stops to clear the debris and sees the video camera. Later, some of the boys approach her, trying to get it back. She refuses and gives the tape to the police. 8 teens are rounded up. 5 are released to their parents, but 3 are charged with crimes, including burglary and arson. 2 are put on probation, and 1 is sent to a youth facility for a year. In this disturbing video, a gang of 5 men beats and robs a passerby in a rundown neighborhood of Washington, D.C. Law enforcement officials say the gang videotapes its brutal acts for bragging rights, intending to show the tape to friends in New York. They only take a break when someone spots an approaching police car. But even the threat of police doesn't stop them. Later, one mugger knocks a man unconscious.
Knock the mother out! Out of one punch, knock the man out! This is straight up DC hustling.
Later, the cameraman even does a mock interview with the man who threw the punch.
I would like to meet the man that knocked him out. Was it you? It was you that knocked him out. I swear to God, you's a hard-hitting motherfucker. You's a fine young gentleman. Hold that thing, Ralph.
But once again, it is the video shot by the criminals themselves that leads to their arrest. A bail bondsman looking for one of the men on an unrelated charge finds the tape in his apartment. After the video is shown repeatedly in court, all 5 men are convicted and receive jail terms ranging from 16 years to life. Most often, though, it is video from surveillance cameras that helps identify criminals and solve crimes. In southwest Houston, a convenience store is robbed. The take is small, $38 and a rack of lottery tickets. But the surveillance video tells a menacing story. 2 young robbers, one of them armed, and a clerk who is clearly terrified. But even with the video, Houston police are unable to identify the suspects. So they release the surveillance tape to the local news media. That's when Dedra Brown's life changes forever.
The phone started ringing, relatives calling, friends. We see Lewis on TV. He's robbing a stop and go. And I asked if they were sure. And they said yes, and I said, well, how do you know that it's Lewis? And they said, well, we see his face, and we could tell by his voice.
The boy with the gun is her only son, 14-year-old Lewis Clemens. She has to make an agonizing decision.
I called Lewis to the room, and I asked him if he knew anything about being at a stop and go around 3, 4 in the morning doing a robbery, and he said yes. And I said, okay, well, the police are looking for you, so you need to put on your shoes and come and go with me, and let's turn you in.
At the police station, Lewis immediately confesses. He has never been in trouble with the law before. But the catchy headline of "Mom turns in 14-year-old son" is suddenly big news in Houston. Lewis is tried under Texas law as an adult. He plea bargains and is sentenced to 9 months in a boot camp. But even after his release, his problems with the law don't end.
When they're put in that adult system, they get adult friends. And they're like brotherhood. They don't go away.
Lewis's association with these troubled friends leads him into several parole violations. None is serious enough to warrant a charge. Still, a judge sentences Lewis, now 17, to 5 years in a state penitentiary.
The videotape being played over and over again, and then later the twist of the mother being the link that brings the unknown suspect to the police kept the case in the news to the point where he all of a sudden was somebody that was, if not public enemy number 1, at least somebody that people thought of as an adult.
In the end, Lewis Clemens paid a heavy price for his crime caught on tape.
Lewis got to go through it the hard way, because what he's going through is most definitely the hard way. He is lost in a system that only God can see him through.
Over the course of this hour, we've shown you several examples of victims fighting back against their attackers. But we haven't shown you the many instances where victims were killed resisting their assailants. Police always recommend that you don't take matters into your own hands, that you offer complete cooperation. Still, these stories are warnings to would-be criminals everywhere. Your crime could be caught on tape. That is this edition of MSNBC Investigates. I'm John Siegenthal.
To subscribe to our MSNBC Primetime newsletter or for information on upcoming programs, go to prime.msnbc.com.